All right, we are officially on air. Welcome everyone to the OD Consultancy Space 2.0. My name is Lydia. Thank you, Nicole. I am the current MCVP OD for ISIC US. This is Nicole. He's current MCVP TM. Yay. We are the TM OD corner. So I am just gonna, the space is an hour long. The first about half hour or so will be me explaining the slides that I have provided for you all. And the last half hour, or however long it is after I finish explaining the slides, will be a space for you to ask me any questions your heart desires. Feel free to type your questions into the chat while I'm speaking. That way you don't forget them or anything, or you can write them down somewhere else. And I will get to them once I'm finished explaining all of the slides. Sound good? Everybody cool? Awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and project my slides, and then you're going to listen to my voice for about half an hour. So lucky all of you. Project, 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 project. Oh, shit. Actually, I need to change my... I need to change the side the screen is on. Project. There we go. All right. Officially sharing screens. Hooray. Welcome one and all to, again, OD Consultancy Space 2.0. So just a little introduction. This space is meant to replace one-on-one consultancies because there are a lot of people that reached out to me. So I decided to have a consultancy space instead of having one-on-ones, because that would be an extreme time suck. And I would probably just end up getting frustrated. So this is to replace those. If you do still have questions after this space, please feel free to reach out to me via WhatsApp. Please no Facebook. I very much do not like Facebook Messenger very much. Saturday, I will generally be unavailable, but this is my phone number. Please reach out to me via WhatsApp, and I'll get back to you as soon as I am able to with any questions that you may have after this space. So moving on. Here is ISIC US at a quick glance. We have 40 entities, 28 LCs, 12 official expansions, and 7 regions in ISIC US. We are a very large country. I would very much recommend you take a look at a map of the United States and also of ISIC United States to see how very much spread out our local committees are, because it'll give you a good kind of just view of what we're working with here. So we do have 28 local committees. We have 5 full members, 5 general members. If you want to take a look at our membership models of ISIC United States, I have a resources page at the end of this PowerPoint that will give you links to the compendium, the summer steering team output in which we changed the membership model, et cetera, things like that. So there are a lot of resources available for you to understand the membership model, should you so desire. We have 12 official expansions, OEs. The OE Philadelphia is being closed by me as the MC member responsible for expansions due to several or many reasons, and an OE Indiana State was open. So we still do have a full 12 official expansions, but you do not need to include Philadelphia in your analysis of expansions, but you should include Indiana State despite them being opened literally 13 days ago. They are an official expansion. They just have not done anything quite yet. They were just opened. 7 regions: West Coast, Rocky Mountain High, Texas, Rowdies West, Rowdies East, Southern Comfort, and Northeast Beast. Pretty self-explanatory, easy to explain. If you want to see a full map of our membership of our local committees, I would recommend you go to isicus.org/membership. That's kind of the landing page for where people can apply as a member of ISIC US to a local committee. And on that page is a map showing where all the local committees are. There are a few LCs not on there yet because they are new expansions, which is Indiana State and also St. Edward's University, which is in Austin. So this is ISIC United States at a very, very quick glance. So now going into what exactly the OD model is. This is in general the exchange tiers. We're a little different than most countries in that tier 1 is actually our lowest tier, and our tiers move up as numbers. This was with the mindset that when we developed this model, I developed each of these tiers, or rather the program responsible to develop these tiers with my input. The thinking behind it was that it's both internal or national strategic and also local strategic, because for example, for us as an MC, we know we should treat, for example, for OGB in tier 1, if an LC does 2 exchanges versus an LC that does 15 exchanges, those 2 LCs will likely need the same strategies and same support to achieve those number of exchanges. Because what had happened a lot in ISIC US is that before the OD model, before exchange tiers and clusters, it was just kind of like, hey, everyone, here are all these strategies, use all of them. So for example, an LC in tier 1 would be doing things or trying to do really, really big things with university relations. And that was really actually hurting them because they weren't able to focus on just the basics of doing operations. They were trying to do something that generally now would belong in tier 3. So that's kind of an overview of the OD model on the national level, how we manage and coach the LCs in different tiers. And then also on the local level, it gives people more of kind of like a more defined way to reach an ambition. So like example, a lot of our LC's goals this year that were just formed at our past national conference are to jump from tier 1 to tier 2, or to jump from cluster 1 to cluster 2 or cluster 3, things like that. So it gives people a better and easier way to form their goal setting. So that's basically the exchange tiers. It's the same for as far as the national and the local level strategics for every program, every tier. The clusters also. So what happens in ISIC US, or what has happened, is that we required each LC to actually choose a focus program. And in doing so, we focused all of our energy in terms of coaching, in terms of LC development, on whichever focus program they chose. Our national focus program as an entity is OGB. And so most LCs, just because of where they were at in terms of their local reality, the level of exchanges they've done in their past history, are OGB focused. The grand majority of our entities are in tier 1 for OGB, including approvals and realizations. Most LCs are focused in OGB. The second most highest LCs focus is IGT. These are typically either stronger LCs that are able to be focused in IGT, or LCs that are in really, really strategic IGT markets, such as ISIC San Jose, which is in the Silicon Valley, or at Apple, Google, all those places are. So it makes a lot of sense for them to be IGT focused. So the way the clusters work, cluster 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4, you move to cluster 2 once you reach tier 2 in your focus program and tier 2 in OGB. So this OD model really makes sure that we push the focus program of the local entity that they chose, with our guidance and help, of course, and OGB, which is the national focus program. If OGB is the focus program of the entity, then we just look at it as their focus program. So like, for example, for an OGB focused entity to move to cluster 3, they must be at least tier 3 or tier 4 in their focus program, which is OGB. Versus if an entity was IGT focused, then to move to cluster 3, their IGT would need to be in tier 3 or 4, and their OGB would need to be in tier 2. So again, let me know if anything here didn't make sense in the questions. I'll get to them at the end. But this is just a very brief overview of kind of the main parts of the organizational development model. This is our strategy. Moving on, here are the growth paths for each of the programs. I love bit.lys. We have a lot of bit.lys here at ISIC US. It makes it super easy. So these bit.lys will show not only the tiers and the strategies to use in each tier. Like for example, for IGT tier 1, you're just selling IGT, versus tier 2 or 3, maybe you would move into a GE pilot, as an example. So these growth paths also include the organizational structures for each tier of the program. So like, for example, in tier 1 for OGB, you should not have team leaders if you're doing less than 20 exchanges, versus tier 3 in OGB, maybe you'll have 2 team leaders. And those are the kind of structures we recommend. These structures, again, and all of these OD things were developed not just by me as VP OD, but by the program experts. So by our MCVP OGB, OGT, IGT, IGB, because it would not make any sense for me as OD with no background in IGB, for example, and no expertise in any of these programs to make the organizational structures for any of these. So they were very much developed in tune with the functional program heads. As far as organizational health indicators go, actually, I'm going to go back. As far as organizational health indicators go, they are, I would say, somewhat lacking, just because we have not had time or energy to put into making those really, really good. The organizational health indicators mainly, like most OD models, are financial. How many months of reserves does your LC have? Are you in a good place to operate? Can you fund people, et cetera, et cetera? And on a TM side, what is your membership productivity? So these are things that we very much communicate via the finance and TM networks that LCs and LCPs need to be aware of and need to be focused on making sure are healthy, but we have not necessarily given a way to measure their level of healthiness or have tried to implement those from an OD side of things. So they are very much implemented on the TM finance networks, but not necessarily on the OD side. All right, moving on. So these, because I know you have a question on your application that says, please group all LCs by focus program and make a analysis or whatever it says. I don't know. I don't really remember. But so here is the information for you because I know you need it. So these are all LCs and their focus programs. The LCs with the little asterisks here, these denote our official expansions. Like I said, we have 12 of them. Most of them are in the latter half of the alphabet. So that's just kind of weird, actually. But so these are all of them. That's for you. I don't really have to talk about it because you can use that information as you so please. Moving on, here are the total realizations. So these are not approvals, these are realizations for January 1st to November 30th, 2016. It's not to December 30th because I have not had time to compile all of that data yet. If you are so curious, you can definitely look at EXPA for that. But these are generally what the LCs look like. And if you see here, OGX gap, ICX gap, that was to denote our old membership model, where the old membership model was an LC was either placed into a university allocation, which means to reach general membership, they must achieve 30 OGX, or a city allocation, which means they must achieve 4 ICX in order to be a general member. And to be a full member, you must achieve both. So we can see here, like Appalachian State, as of November 30th, was 1 OGX away from being a general member as they were a university-focused local committee. Again, this membership model has changed. To become a general member now, you just must have 30 exchanges overall. Just overall total number of exchanges. So as we can see here, the ones in green will be general members at that point. And then we changed the membership model along with the summer steering team made up of LCPs to reflect the new OD model. So to become a full member in ISIC US, you must be cluster 3 in the OD model, depending on whatever your focus program is, which is defined again in the compendium. So these are the tiers those LCs are in. As you can see, the grand majority of our LCs are in tier 1 for most programs. For IGV, a quick thing to note is that last semester we only had 6 pilot LCs run the program. So all of these dashes means these LCs did not run the program. We have 7 currently right now. We added LC Madison to these 6. So this is just more data for you. Yay, congratulations, hooray, hooray. Oh wait, was that? Okay, yep, nope, that data was right. I thought I saw something wrong. It's correct, hooray, you're welcome. So this is just a quick overview of our expansion strategy of ISIC United States. So what has happened before in ISIC US is that there has not been a super defined kind of expansion strategy. Alex actually was my predecessor in terms of being the MC responsible for expansions. So she was kind of the first to have like a specific NST member for expansions, things like that. And so during our transition and during like my MC planning and what I decided to do and what I had learned from entities like ISIC in Colombia and other places where I got my OD training was that we needed the expansions to only run one program and really focus. It was the same message we were giving to every other LC. You have to focus, 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 pick one program, make it amazing, have OGB for financial and like leadership pipeline sustainability. But for expansions, what happens here in ISIC US is per compendium, myself as MC responsible for expansions, I basically have like full like power over expansions. I can, like per compendium, I have the power to say, hey, you expansion number 7, you are disbanded because I say so. And all I have to do now is send an email to the National Plenary saying you're disbanded and you must cease all operations immediately. So that is the power that I have as MC responsible for expansions. Of course, I do not use it like that. We only disband expansions per a certain set level of criteria. And what was really awesome this year is that we did make all expansions run only OGB. So we had them cut OGT, IGT, some expansions were running IGT. The only exception to this rule is our expansion at USC, University of Southern California, because they were opened before my term, before Alex's term, as an expansion that runs IGT. So we couldn't like super really change what they had been doing for the past 2 years, but they also now run OGB. So that's an example of the expansion strategy that we have this year. I also managed to recruit a really amazing expansions manager. I'll jump down here real quick. His name is David Lesmes. He was an expansions LCP in Colombia, and in his LC's like first year of existence, they did over 100 exchanges. So I was like, awesome, please come here and teach us everything you know. So he did. So we managed to, we stole Columbia's expansion strategy because I asked him to and because they let us. And we translated everything to English and made their expansion strategy reflect our realities, reflect our culture, whatever. And so that is how our expansions growth path and expansions OD model came about. So last semester, David was really the only one I had working with expansions besides myself. And so this semester, he has a whole expansion support team. He has, Justin is actually the expansions finance support member. So he manages and helps all the finances for all the expansions, which is awesome. We have an OGV person, a TM person, a guy coaching our LCPs for expansions, and David is the team leader of all of them. So basically, I let David basically run the show for expansions, and I'm there to give direction and support and do anything like, I don't know, legal in quotation marks. So the goal for expansions is that every expansion does do 30 OGB by Summer National Conference, which is one of our 2 national conferences a year. It takes place in July or August, depending. So that's the goal, every single one of our 12 expansions, which is about 350 total OGB. So it's a very big goal for 12 entities that have done less than 10, less than 20 in the past. But that is the goal. And they know that this year, this is basically their last hurrah, essentially. Some of these expansions have been expansions since 2013, which is going on like 4 years now, as you know, and you can do math, I'm sure. So this is basically the expansions, like this is it. And we're trying our very, very hardest to give them all the support they need to do that. Expansions also one of our expansions rules is that they only do exchange with one LC and one entity, one country somewhere, instead of trying to market, we have 100+ countries. Like, no, focus has always been the message of this term. As I mentioned, we have 12 expansions. Philadelphia is being closed. Indiana State was just opened. As far as our expansions GCPs go, I'll skip to the second point first, is that I have to say no to a lot of people that want to come and open expansions. I get a lot of emails every few months, every month, from university professors, university officials, students, random people saying, hey, I want to open an expansion. I want to open a chapter in my university. And I really, really do have to say no to them. One, some of them spell ISIC wrong in the email. So I'm like, no. 2, because what we've come to realize with the past history of how expansions have been working in ISIC US is that if we have someone open an expansion that has no prior ISIC experience, whether that means they have gone on exchange or they come from ISIC in another country, another entity, if they do not have that experience, it's so hard for them to like get on the boat, to get on the bus. And it takes so much time and energy and resources for us to try and get them on the bus. So it's really just not a smart investment. So what I've been doing for all of these people and all these university officials that say, hey, we want to open an expansion, I say, cool. Find me 5 students, send them on exchange this summer, and then when they come back, they can start an expansion. And trying to leave my successor with some pipeline for people that can actually come and open expansions. So the reason Indiana State was opened was the GCP of ISICers from other entities coming to the US to study and saying, we want to open an entity. So the reason Indiana State was open was because the previous LCVP IGB of Casablanca in Morocco, like one of like the highest performing LCs in the world, she's like, hey, I want to open an expansion. And we're like, yes, you can do that. Please come. So that's basically the strategy there, is trying to be really strategic. I have only opened 2 expansions in my term, one being Indiana State and the other being St. Edward's University. Ironically, because my last name is Edwards, that's not the reason, but I opened St. Edward's because they were essentially already kind of like a low-key expansion without anyone knowing they were an expansion, because they were working as kind of like a kangaroo entity with one of our biggest LCs in Austin, Texas. And so the LCP of Austin called me at the beginning of our planning and said, hey, we have this expansion, or we have these people that have like been working here and they have like an LCP and everything. Ironically, the LCP of that expansion had been to more national conferences than I had been to. So the choice was either open them as an official expansion or let them just kind of, and give them the support that they need and deserve, or just kind of like let them like go away. So I decided the first point, and they have so far been very good. They had gotten 1 approval, I believe, this past semester, which is less than expected, but I think with this new training and things like that, they will really take off. So that is a brief, maybe not so brief overview of expansion strategy. Moving on. I just tried to like do this very quickly. Here are the initiatives that we have been doing with OD and with everything in ISAC United States. Again, all of these initiatives, results, and things, these are not just mine as OD, but because of the success of my entire MC Flywheel being on board and really driving down all of these things. So we included weekly SONA. SONA before, I included a link to the SONA form in the resources folder so you can go and see it. Basically, it's a form that LCPs must fill out every Monday that says how many opens did you have for OGV, how many approvals, how many acceptances. It's basically just forcing them to really track, essentially, is what this SONA does. And at the end, it gives them a place where they can put red flags, things like that, things that the MC should be aware of. And this is kind of their weekly cadence of accountability to relate it to 4DX terms. We don't really call it the weekly cadence to accountability, but it is that. So that is weekly SONA. Before us, SONA was taken quarterly. So it was definitely a very big change that we had to onboard people to, but everyone was very, very receptive, which was awesome. And the LCD team, Alex did have an LCD team during her term. I was on it, but we were allocated regionally. So for example, I was the LCD team member responsible for coaching the LCPs in the regions of West Coast and Rocky Mountain High. The hard part with that was that all of the LCs in those regions were in completely different realities. So it was very, very difficult for me as a coach to be able to even align education for three of those 7 LCPs. So what I did for last semester was I allocated LCD team based on focus program. And now for this semester, we've taken that a step further and done focus program, but very, very heavily reality-based, and even just matched people sometimes based on leadership styles and the way I think that they would work with my new LCD team. I had a much better and healthier pipeline for my LCD team for this semester because we have a lot of outgoing LCPs. Actually, my entire team is made up of outgoing LCPs, which I love because it's very difficult to coach an LCP if you have not been an LCP. Moving to organizational culture, again, this has been an initiative basically of the entire MC Flywheel, is that there has been very much more a focus on numbers versus, because what happens before on ISAC US is that there was a very big focus on kind of like member development and those kind of things, and people thinking that member development was the most important thing to happen. So it was kind of like a weird battle between member development and doing like high numbers of exchanges, but we don't want to concentrate on numbers, like we want to concentrate on people, things like that. So I think that that kind of mindset has very much changed to people realizing that in order to be a truly amazing organization, we have to do all of those things. And members are not our customers. Our customers are our customers. And I think that mindset has been very much drilled down. It's still a work in progress, but it's definitely changed to what it was. Slack is another initiative that has been slower going than we would have liked. We are trying to get the entire network onto Slack. So the way emails and things work in ISAC US is we do not have ISAC.net emails. We have ISACUS.org emails, as you may have noticed from mine. So we have, for example, New York-president at ISACUS.org. And the president of New York City has that email, and it's passed down in transition and things like that. So what had happened is, this is jumping a little bit to the email audit actually, is that a lot of these emails were not aligned to branding. So we had a lot of emails like VP OGCVP-San Jose at ISACUS.org, which is, as we know, very, very much not what our product is called anymore. And we also had people, we found out this is going to the LC visits. When we went on a lot of LC visits, I'll get to that later, we realized that a lot of people did not even have access to the emails. We're not using the emails. We're not reading the emails sent on them. So that was a very, very big bottleneck. So we're still trying to fix all of the emails, make sure people are using them, and then get them onto Slack. So moving to LC visits, this was a huge initiative that my MC took up. I was in charge of making sure we have 40 entities, like I mentioned, and we managed to visit 36 of them in 2 months, which was really awesome, because what happens in October is that we have our regional conferences. Regional conferences meaning, West Coast has a conference, Texas has a conference, and so we send MC responsibles to each of those. So essentially what happened was I killed my MC team. I made them go on at least 4 to 6 LC visits each, with conferences on the weekend. So it was incredibly draining. But looking back, we know that it was worth it. A lot of LCs, we had to help with simple things, like I mentioned, you can't log into your email and you haven't told us for 4 months, Okay, let's log you into your email. Oh, look, you have 500 emails. Gosh, I wonder why. Or in other LCs, we were able to help them align their EBs, ensure that they had VP pipeline, things like that. So I think, so like, for example, Rosie, she went on an LC visit and then had the regional conference over the weekend, and then went on 2 LC visits during the week, and then went on another regional conference, and then 2 LC visits during the next week, and then another regional conference that week, and then 1 more LC visit after that conference. So it was incredibly draining, but very, very much did make a difference, I believe. And we got very good feedback from all of the local committees that received LC visits. One of the last things that we have done is, or not the last thing, but on my list anyways, extended alert. This is kind of a new addition to our membership model. So we have, general member, full member, official expansion, and then we also have members on alert, and then we all now have extended alert. Because what's happened is that we have had a lot of LCs that have been on member on alert for more than 4 quarters, which is more than a year. A lot of them for far more than 4 quarters. So we have been, but when they were members on alert, they really had no support to get them off of member on alert. It was always just like, oh, you're a member on alert, like, stop it, like stop doing that. So what happens with LCs that are on extended alert, LCs up for disbandment must apply to this. And if they do not reach the 30 minimum criteria for being a local committee within 1 month, then they must revert to expansion strategy, which means that if an LC, for example, Isaac and Cornell is on extended alert right now, they are running OGB and IGT. And if they do not reach, if they do not get, I think it's 8 more approvals within the next month, then they must cut IGT and only run OGB on expansion strategy. So they're still a local committee. They still have to pay affiliation fees, do everything a local committee has to do, but they run their LC, contractually obliged to run their LC based on expansion strategy, which means they only run OGB to try and in an effort to make them more focused and get them out of members on alert. Another thing that we have done is created a scoreboard. So as you know, as I'm sure you're all familiar with 4DX, having a visual scoreboard is very important. Our scoreboard is pretty. It has a lot of colors. It's a Google sheet, so it's like not super like wow, but it exists, which is more than anything has been before for every single local committee. The one point of improvement for our scoreboard is that it is very much not a player's scoreboard, and it doesn't really show us if we're winning or not. So we don't have a lot of graphs on it. It's just kind of a lot of numbers per program per LC. You can take a look at it. It's on the bit.ly pages at the end of this resources thing. Do feel free to take a look at it when you get a chance to just kind of see what we've been doing. So the results of OD of MC Flywheel so far is that we have seen a lot of growth in OGB, our National Focus Program, which is awesome. LC's growth in Winter Peak as well. We went from, I think we doubled our results in terms of approvals from Winter Peak from last year to this year, which has been really, really awesome. We have decreased in IGT and OGT. The decrease in IGT, both of these programs in IGT and OGT, LCs did stop running these programs because we so much put in the message of focus, focus, focus. But to be honest, I do not think for IGT anyways, it had an extreme kind of result in our decrease. The biggest decrease we've seen in IGT has been because last year, most of the IGT was because of national sales. In this past semester, we did not focus our MCVP partnerships on national sales. She was focused on other things, and now she is focused on national sales. Another thing to note about IGT and IGB is that they have been stagnant sales because LCs do not have a strong sales culture. And Isaac US did not have a very strong sales culture, which we are trying to change. But as we all know with culture, it's a difficult process sometimes, and it's a long process. As far as OGT goes, OGT is an interesting one because a lot of LCs took our message of focus as, okay, we can't do OGT anymore, despite it being very, very similar to OGV, which we did not expect. And as well, there was a cut in supply from previous pre-matches. Shape Columbia not having as many opportunities definitely impacted us, things like that. But an awesome result was LCs are really, really on board with OD. I mean, basically the feedback we got when we were presenting all of this OD model things, all of these new initiatives, is that you'll notice with Isaac US is that our network is very, very intelligent, is very smart. And so when we presented this to them, they were like, whoa, this makes so much sense. Like, of course, like an LC that runs one program in a really amazing way is way better than an LC that runs 3 programs in a kind of mediocre way. It's just no one ever even told us that before. Because what MCs have pushed in the past is that the LC that runs the 3 programs or 4 programs like really well or like pretty okay is like an amazing LC. And like, how dare you even think about cutting a program? Like, you have to run all these 3 programs. That's what makes a great LC. Whereas the message of our MC is, no, it's okay. Cut those programs that are dragging you back from being really, really awesome in that one program, in those 2 programs. So LCs have been really, really on board with that. So the way I like to talk about how we did OD this year is that we just took everything everyone already knew, put it in boxes in the growth paths, and then just helped them do it, honestly. And people have been very, very open to that. So the last thing I'll talk about is kind of the role of MCVP OD in terms of interacting with MCP LCPs on the plenary. So I work I'm not sure how it will be with Alex, but I'll tell you the reality of it now. I work very closely with Audrey in terms of managing LCPs. Audrey is the team leader of the LCPs. They know that she is the one they go to for things, but we work very closely in terms of creating the LCP track agendas, steering team, things like that. So we very closely both co-manage the LCP class, but she is their direct team leader. As far as interacting with LCPs go, I do interact with them a fair amount, especially because my LCD team coaches all of the LCPs. So like, for example, another way I interact with LCPs is that the National Education Cycle, that is a project of my LCD team. It is not a project of Audrey. She does not have time to create an entire educational cycle for our LCPs, so that falls under my job description. As far as interacting with the plenary goes, I do not necessarily have a network because there's no local level VPODs, but I see the LCPs as my network, though they're not directly mine, if that makes sense. As far as subcommittees go, the MCVP OD will be next year also in charge of the subcommittee of membership, which is just evaluates the membership of local committees under the membership model, and is typically also the MC member responsible for expansions. I am also in charge of the legislation subcommittee, but that's mostly just because I was an LCP in ISAC US and I understand how ISAC US legislation works. So that's just like kind of subjective. And NST, of course, I manage my NST very, very consciously. The past semester, I did not do a very good job of managing my NST because the way this role works is that you are one person trying to manage 40 entities, and there was no possible way you can do this by yourself. And the thing with OD and ISAC US is like anyone's JD on an MC is gigantic. Anyone's JD on an MC is huge and is like really difficult to manage. The thing with OD is that there are so many different things and so many different categories that it's very difficult sometimes to prioritize which of those things needs to come first. And so this semester, I'm very consciously trying to make a choice to make sure my NST comes first, or like my expansions come first, because those are the results I'm very much responsible for. So remember, there's only one of you. You have to have a strong LCD team, NST, expansion support team, whatever. Because it's impossible to do this job by yourself. Very, very much impossible. Moving on. Here are the resources, like I said, bit.ly's links. Feel free to look at all of these things. Your main resource will be the ISAC US Hub, which is our new education platform that Nakul you can't see him, but he's behind me, that Nakul so awesomely created. This is the scoreboard, like I mentioned. The WNC output, which is our winter national conference, can be accessed via the main isacus.org hub. And these are just all things I thought could be useful to you, honestly, like a focus program guide, which is how we downscaled, having LCs choose a focus program, guiding them in it. Summer steering team output, which includes the membership model, OD things. It's where we evaluated the growth paths with those LCPs. Winter steering team, which is the steering team we just had this past December. This is the SONA form, in case you want to look at it. Don't fill it out, that would be kind of weird. But it's just so you can look at it and see like what we're asking. This is the compendium link. We have not updated it yet to reflect the changes made at this last Winter National Conference, which includes extended alert, our ER principles, among other things, but that's there for you. The scoreboard, EB structures, how we encourage people to not have a VP marketing, to really follow the CXP structure, which is how you can see the session by Kip. So we took marketing away from a local level and just encouraged a CXP structure. And this is the U.S. Leadership Contact Doc. Please do not bother these people so much. We really need them to do operations. Like, I know you have to talk to them and like you need to know what's going on, but please, we need them to do operations, so don't bother them too much. Thanks. Okay, moving on. And this is just the last slide here. For more info, if you have more questions about OD, please do contact me via WhatsApp. If you have questions directly about like product specific questions, like, oh, for IGT, what companies do you sell to the most? Like, I could like try and answer that for you, but honestly, you'll have a way better idea what companies we sell to if you ask the product head, who is Vinny. So you can feel free to ask me any questions you may have. If I feel they're more appropriate for a product head, I will simply just direct you to that product head. But as for now, that is my entire presentation. So I'll stop screen sharing. Thank you all so much for listening to me talk for 37 minutes. And now if you have any questions, you can say them, you can type them, and I'm here for another 23 minutes to answer all of them for you.
All right, I have a question for you.
Sure.
It seems like now you have focused so much, and I was wondering, like local committees that are not running IGT, are they financially healthy?
That's an interesting question, because what happens with, in terms of LCs that are financially healthy, actually the majority of LCs that are in debt are LCs that run IGT. Because sometimes what happens is that these LCs get national sales coming in for them. Like for example, ISIC in San Jose has had a lot of national sales, but what happens the next year is that they don't get re-raised, but they still get affected by the affiliation fees that we issue them, calculated based on their past revenue of the past 3 years. So LCs that are not running IGT are like pretty much okay, because they never really did a high level of IGT. Yeah. And since we're focusing them much more on OGV, they're able to try and make up for that, maybe what would have been lost revenue with IGT, and take it into OGV. Because IGT makes LCs a shit ton of money, like a lot of money, but OGV also gets LCs at least $300 per approval, because each approval is $500. And then once you take away the royalty fee or whatever percentage must be put away for the affiliation fee, that's still at least several $100s for the LC.
Okay, thank you for answering.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question for you.
Go for it, I'm here.
Here in the Netherlands, a lot of local committees use a financial incentive. And what you guys do is have a lot of focus. So say like you can run this project and not this product. And is there any financial incentives for local committees to run more exchanges?
In terms of like rewards and recognitions and things like that?
Yeah, in terms of having more money to spend on member development.
Mm-hmm. We don't. Last semester, we tried to run an R&R campaign based on like a point system. And so we would give them money that they could use for IXP or conferences. That didn't really work, because I overestimated myself and I was not able to manage that process by myself, and I didn't have anyone to help me for it. So that kind of really fell through the cracks. So what's been happening the past few months, and what will be happening this semester, is that the product heads or the network heads are in charge of making those kind of, like we had, for example, for IGT, we had like a sales sprint. So based on the number of meetings an LC had, like they would get a certain number of points, and the sales sprint ran over a period of several weeks. And at the end of this period, the LC with the most points would get like a fee to our national conference and an IXP exchange fee for an IGT member. Like they would get that monetary reward for that. So all of our campaigns, all of the things that we like, any money that we give LCs is not things that they can just like spend on like a pizza party or something. Yeah. Like any money or anything we give them has to drive exchange somehow, whether it's a conference fee, an IXP fee. Those are basically really the only and main things we give LCs money for at this point. But yeah, they all drive exchange and member development through exchange and conferences.
I see.
Yeah, you got questions, keep them coming.
Lydia, I have a question for you. I was talking with some US LCs, And they commented to me that many of the responsibilities that are related to structure, membership allocation, and organization culture are LCP's final responsibilities. Do you and Akil think about making a VP TM more strategic when it comes to these responsibilities?
Mm-hmm. I think I know Nicole's answer to this is that we have to take kind of one step at a time with VPTMs and like how TM works in the US. Because like before, for example, the main responsibility of VPTMs before Nicole was LCM or like or socials. And those were like the responsibilities of TM because that's how it had been done in years beforehand. So now we're focusing more or we're focusing less on cultural things, like specific cultural things, and more on things like team standards implementation, driving exchange, because we know that an LC can form culture through those things. Like if an LC decides that their culture is that we want to fully implement team standards and like work really hard, they will have a healthy team culture or an LC culture. And so because we know that if we suddenly said to VPTMs, hey, focus on LC culture, everything else that we've done, they wouldn't think about team standards. They wouldn't do that because that's not how the culture has been in ISAQS. Having them focus on like strategic operational things is like fairly new. So if we said, hey, focus on culture, then they would revert back to doing things like focusing on making fun socials or like making LCM every week, which is not necessarily the JD of a VPTM.
Great.
All right, I have a question. Well, you are the expansion manager. So I can assume that your end goal in this process is to get as many exchanges as possible, to get as many people to have an awesome Isaac experience. And right now, I find it so interesting that there's so much effort in the focus. And don't you ever think that by not having that focus so much, you have more opportunity?
Sorry, keep going.
Don't you ever think like if you do not focus so much on specific products that local committees could have more exchanges, so have all the products?
The reason
is so interesting.
So like you're asking like, wouldn't LCs do more if they ran more programs?
Yeah.
The answer, as we've seen on ISAQS, is definitely not.
Okay.
Because like an expansion, for example, no expansion has been able to become a general member based on their own effort. All expansions that have been upgraded in the past 3-4 years have been upgraded because of national IGT accounts. And a lot of these expansions that have been upgraded because of national IGT accounts saw a lot of problems in their first year becoming a general member local committee because they didn't know how to do anything. They still didn't know how to do things. Like they knew how to deliver exchange and do like IGT, AD delivery things, but they weren't upgraded of their own accord because they were focused on a program and were able to do that program. And expansions as they stand typically have very few members. They typically have less than 20 members. And if we take 3 members for TM, 2 members for finance, like that still leaves a fairly good amount for like a focus program to have. But if we split these members and split all of this education to different things, not only does it become difficult to manage on a local level, but it becomes very, very difficult to manage on a national level as well. Because like I mentioned, like we are like 10 MC members with our NSTs managing 40 entities. It's very difficult, for example, for Vinny, who's VP IGT, to allocate an NST member to coach an expansion that maybe will deliver him 1 IGT.
Yeah.
And that expansion that delivers that 1 IGT will maybe deliver 5 OGV. Whereas if we focus that expansion on OGV and focused our effort on making them help and do IGV, they would definitely at least triple that, 15, 20, which is what we've seen with, I'll give you a specific example. ISIC in San Diego is one of our most successful expansions right now. In the beginning of their term, they had OGV, they were doing IGT, they had like a VPER in the first 6 months of their term. In the last 6 months of their term, which happens now, like I said, we focused them on OGV, focused them, like they cut marketing, they did the CXP structure. They basically did everything we asked them to do and then ran with it. And now they're one of our highest performing. They were one of our highest performing LCs in the Winter Peak. They got the OGB Tier 2 award at our Winter Conference and the Expansion of the Year award. So it's not just like my opinion saying like no, it's like the past experiences and like the results that we've seen. That's
The results show that it really works.
Yeah, like focusing like really, really works here.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Actually, can you be more specific on what the question is, can you elaborate on the OD model of ISAC in the United States? What exactly do you want me to elaborate on? Because I could probably talk about the OD model for a long time. So just let me know exactly what it is you want me to elaborate on, and I will. Larissa, did you have another question in the meantime?
Yeah, I have another question. From your story, I can hear that sometimes there's a lack of knowledge, a lack of ISAC knowledge. Where do you think are still the weaknesses within the local committees in the United States?
Yeah, that's a good question, because like I said, our entity and our members are very, very smart. They're very intelligent.
Yeah.
But what typically happens is, I think it's twofold. Is one, even if they have enough information and knowledge, sometimes the commitment is not strong enough to execute it. Because there are so many other things people are involved in. They don't see ISAC as a priority. They see it as an extracurricular, as a club. They do not execute. But I would say the grand majority of our problem in ISAC US, and one that we very much saw in our LC visits, is that sometimes people just don't know how. They know why they want to do it. They know what they need to do. They know they should like pick up the phone like for IGT and make a cold call to a company. But sometimes they just don't know how to do that exactly. Like, what do I say? What do I ask this company for? Like, what kind of culture? Like, I'm not being driven by any kind of culture right now to make me like focus and do this more. So sometimes it is like a lack of educational knowledge. And I would say the how is something we've really done well with OGX, with our OGX programs, like for a OGD, for example. But for example, like LCs know that they should make LC to LC partnerships with local committees, but they don't necessarily know exactly how the upkeep of that should look, if that makes sense in that way. So it's a lot of times the how of ISAC US that people don't know.
Lydia, I have a question. Here in Brazil, we usually say that the VPTM is the best friend of the LCP when it concerns the analysis of the performance of the membership. And when we think this way, we use VPTM a lot in strategies to help the LCs reach their exchange goals. How do you guys think that right now a VPTM can help you more when it concerns in planning versus achieving the goals?
I think this is definitely a question you should ask Nakul in addition to me. But speaking as a previous LCP as well, definitely like helping the LCP. Team standards is always like the answer I go to, because it is something we so desperately need like implemented in ISAC US. Because like I said before, like people know what it is, they know why they should do it, but they don't always know how that looks. And so if we had VPCMs who knew how that looked and said to their other VPs, hey VPs, like you need to have a one-on-one every week and this is how it should be structured. I think that would help people a lot in terms of like really understanding what needs to be done. As well as like if a VPTM's having like more involvement and like really understanding that they are responsible for more than LCMs or socials, and that they are directly responsible, just as the program head is, for the exchange numbers and the health of the local committee. That mindset too would be a very big change.
And how do you as a MCVP OD help to make the how more clearer?
One thing we realized, it wasn't a mistake, it was something we had to do. We had to start with like growth paths, for example, which have helped people the most, we had to start with the implementation and downscale of them through the LCPs.
Mm-hmm.
Because if something doesn't get through the LCP, it doesn't get to anyone else. But what we've come to realize is with the growth paths and with everything that like I have been very, very focused on the past semester has been a lot on LCPs. And the program heads and the network managers have been very, very focused on trying to downscale that to VPs. But sometimes it's still difficult for LCPs or VPs to downscale the things we're teaching them or the things that they know to their members. So I think the how that would really help is making sure that members understand the OD model, like on a member, like the way they need to as a member, because the way a member needs to understand OD versus the way an LCP needs to understand OD is very different. But we have been catering just to this one and not necessarily to this one, just because that's the way it had to be done. You know, I always say that like OD is like a staircase in terms of like the level of implementation you want to get to, or like on an LC level, it's like the tier you want to get to, but it's still a staircase and you're right here right now. And you can't just like appear suddenly at the top of the staircase. Like you have to take the steps. And like the first step for OD implementation is the LCPs, is the network. So now we're pretty much like good with that step now. And now we have to figure out ways to get it more to the VPs and more to the members for people to really start understanding the how. And that includes synergies with all of the program heads in terms of like my responsibilities and stuff.
I think that's very, very interesting. Because if I would see how things go here, the LCP is not really involved in OGX or the IDT, IDV business unit whatsoever. So actually the LCP, they need to hear from their VP OGX what's going on, also on a national level. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit different. Yeah, and I can see how it sometimes does not work if you have a lot of people involved in the process and the knowledge needs to go from the national level to the LCP, to the LCVP, and eventually the members who do the work.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the way, because with one interesting thing to note about the culture of ISAC US in the past anyways is that sometimes LCs have a very high distrust of the MC. And we know that if LCPs do not like the MC, they will not follow our strategies. They will not follow the growth paths for OGB because they'll tell their VP OGB, despite what everyone else is telling the VP OGB, if the LCP tells that VP to do something else, like that VP will do something else. So like we knew that we had to start at the top in terms of like our LCs. But yeah, hopefully we will get to the point where VPs are far more knowledgeable about their products and about their growth paths than LCPs. And I think we are getting to that point, honestly, fairly quickly. But I'm pretty excited for that day. Cool. I don't think I have time for a couple more questions if anyone has any more.
Okay, I have many questions. So
Go for it.
If anybody else doesn't have a question, then I'm happy to ask one. And just a general question, what is the nicest thing about your position?
I think the nicest thing about my position, speaking like as an MCVP, is that I know if you ask me a question about OD and you go and ask Katie, who's our VP Finance, a question about OD, we'll probably answer in the same way. Or if you go and ask, if you ask Nicole a question about OGB and then you ask Rosie, who's the program head, a question about OGB, they'll probably have the same answer. So I think that has been the nicest thing about my role is my team, honestly. And that we as an MC have been very, very focused. Yeah, hi, Nicole. We've been very, very focused on like making, like whatever decisions we make, like as like individual, like product or program heads or whatever head we are, like the team like takes it and runs with it. Like the growth paths and like everything we've done with OD is not my accomplishment and my accomplishment alone. It's the accomplishment of the entire MC and like the steering team of LCPs that helped us. So I think the nicest thing about my position is that in no way have I ever been like alone in everything that I've done. So that's been nice.
I have a question, Lydia. Basically, is how is your relation with operations team? Because, for example, in some countries, the MCVPOD is the team leader, or how is this relation in US?
Really the team leader of operations at all, but I do work very closely with most of them in terms of making sure. What happens is that, so we started our MC with like very strong OD base, and then we built our operations and strategies off of that base. So what happens now is that I know that whatever strategies operations comes up with is almost always aligned to OD strategy, or what we're trying to do with OD. Like we talk to each other. I talk to all of them every day about different things. Like I help consult them on like which LCs should get which kind of coaching, or things like that. And any kind of strategies or things that they have, they will typically come and align with me and make sure, like just like even double check and make sure. And like sometimes we'll make adjustments or I'll give suggestions on things. But it's very much built on a sense of like an OD foundation, and also like just both of us or all of us like trusting that that person is making the right and best decision for that program. So I'm like actually pretty heavily involved in what happens with programs, most heavily involved with OGV, because that's our national focus program. But it's just honestly a very good relationship in general, and very much collaborative and working together. I'm not the team leader, but when it comes to like decision making, like they will most likely come to me for either input or help in making the decision.
All right. So I can hear you saying synergy a lot, because I can imagine that in your position, you have to keep an overview of all the business units, and of course, everybody, the MCVP, IDT, they all like their own product. So it seems to be you have a really challenging role sometimes. Mm-hmm. So my question is, what is the most challenging about your position?
It relates to the best part. In that I'm never alone, and sometimes the worst part is that I can't do anything alone, really, which just it sometimes frustrates me based on like how quickly I want things to happen. Sometimes is that I do have to wait for strategies to be created. Sometimes, like when I ask for things from the program heads or from network responsibles, I do have to wait for them to give me that information in order for me to do something. So that is sometimes the most frustrating part. And I would say another, what was the question? The hardest part or the worst part? I forget.
Yeah, the most challenging. So hardest.
Another most challenging part of my role, I think maybe just personally, but also I think the magnitude of the role itself is setting priorities and really trying to really think and decide what is the most important thing to prioritize this week, this month, this semester, this quarter. And will that bring us to the results we want and need? That has been very challenging as well.
I can imagine. And what is the most important quality to have as an MCP OD in the US?
One thing that I've realized is incredibly important in the role that I'm in right now is how I approach the implementation of things. Because I'm a communications studies major. I haven't graduated yet, but whatever. But like I know that like the way things are communicated or implemented has an impact on the way they are received and used. So I think maybe it's not the most important quality of an MCVP OD, but in terms of like working with other people, not only on your team, but working with LCPs in the plenary or VPs, and being able to explain the same thing to different people in ways that they will understand it. That's an incredibly important part of being MCVP OD, because you are a super huge implementation channel for a lot of different things. And so you need to have a network of 40 LCs, a network of over 1,000 people, understand things and be able to use it towards results or doing something in the right way. So I don't know if it's the most important thing, but it's the first thing that pops into my head. So I guess it's important. Got time for one more question if anyone wants to ask another one.
Okay, thank you very much, Lydia. I'm leaving. It's too late here in Istanbul, so
Okay, bye, Pedro.
thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Luego. Any more questions?
Yeah, like what is the preferred background of somebody who is in your position?
I actually asked Alex about this because I wanted to make sure my answer would be aligned. What her answer was is for it relates to like the TMOD corner. She would prefer someone in this role who A, is a second term MC member, or B, was an LCP for ISEC United States. Those are basically like her wishes for this role and also for TM as well. I'm not sure how, like you'll have to probably ask her about that, but definitely someone, if I had to answer that question, I think it would be roughly the same as hers. But it would also depend, if not a second term MC member, would also depend on that person, on that international's level of experience with ISEC United States, and the different kinds of benefits they could bring as an international, having not done an MC. So trying to align my answer with Alex's because that will change for sure, I think. But yes, okay, again, if you have any more questions, anything you need, please do feel free to WhatsApp me. Please do not Facebook message me. Please, please, please WhatsApp me. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Tomorrow I will be a little less available, but I'll be available throughout your process. Good luck on the application. I hope you're doing well. I think you have, what, 8 days left approximately or so. 8 days, yes. I wish you all the best of luck. Let me know if you need anything, and maybe I'll see you in a couple months. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Lydia.